I'm Tom Johnson, Thomas Johnson, Antique Furniture Restoration in Gorham, Maine. This is not an antique, this is a reproduction chair. It mostly resembles the William and Mary period from about the year 1700 in England. This chair fell over, the crest rail broke off. Luckily, I believe I have most, if not all, of the pieces. So the first step will be to put this back together dry without glue and figure out what I want to glue up first. So this seems to be going back together pretty well. Got a big chunk missing here, and there's a chunk missing on the back here. So let's see what we got in the parts department here. And there's some little pieces missing here. I'm hoping that these are the little pieces I have over here. So the first thing to do, I guess it's kind of obvious, I'm going to glue back these big pieces that I have, and also like where this crest rail is split, I'm going to do all those small glue ups first. I don't think this one clamp is doing the job. I better get some others. I've got the missing pieces here, but I think I'm going to have to do this in stages. I'm going to do the split part first, and then do the broken part. Now I've had these clamps on for a couple of hours, so I'm going to take them off and glue on the remaining little pieces here. There's still some pieces missing here, and I have some shards, but I don't think I can fit them back in there. I'm just going to have to fill that. These chips glued down okay. I wish they were a little better, but I'm missing a piece anyway. I've got to fill this in. I've got some other voids to fill in. I think I'll do this work first. There's also, I noticed on the bottom here is some chipping that probably explains some of these little pieces. I wasn't sure where they went yesterday. So I've got to fix this up. So I'm going to mix up a little epoxy putty. I'm going to add some stain to it. This is a powdered called Blendall stain. It's like a dye stain. I'm going to mix that in with the epoxy putty. I'm just going to fill in this place in the bottom. The chips are so shattered I can't glue them in. I'm going to fill it in with epoxy putty. It's on the underside here. And then I'll use a little of that to fill in my missing places here. In the minutes after mixing up the epoxy putty and applying it, I put a little water in this cup, and then you can take your putty knives or even your finger and smooth it out quite a bit. Now I'll set the timer for 5 minutes, because the timing is kind of critical on this epoxy putty. In 5 minutes, I'm going to take a gray Scotch-Brite pad and smooth this out even more. It's important to get this putty out of these nooks and crannies before it fully hardens. Okay, and so now there's one dowel that's broken, so I've got to drill that out and replace it. It's a 1/4 inch dowel, but I'll start with this 3/16 bit, see if I can get it down the middle. Well, I think I got that 3/16 hole right down the middle, so I'll just move up a bit size. A couple sizes, but I'll get halfway to the 1/4 inch mark. So now I've got that original 1/4 inch hole, and I can just run the bit down it. Okay, I feel like I'm pretty close to gluing this back together, but then I realized the crust rail is so splintery and it's a little loose there anyway, so I want to take this section off and glue the crust rail back together separate. All right, that went together pretty well, and so I think tomorrow I'll be able to glue the whole thing up. Okay, I've let this dry overnight. Let's see what we got here. It looks really good here. I do have some touch-up work to do on the back of this. This big crack across the back, especially here, that must be where some of the splinters came out. But I'm just going to fill this with some Fama wood. I will touch it up. I think I'll do that and these other scuff marks before I assemble it. The front looks pretty good. There's just a little bit of the same type of thing right there. Alright, I've let the wood putty dry during lunch, and now I'll sand. I'll start with a little bit of old 100 paper and then 150. Alright, I've sanded all the repair areas with up to 220. So now I think I'll stain it with some Van Dyke Brown dye stain. The reason I use dye stain as opposed to oil stain you can put on here one shot and what it is, and it would probably be too light. With the dye stains, I put on a coat, and then if there's light areas I can go back and add more stain and make it darker. I can make them as dark as I want. Okay, I think I got everything. Drying time's about 45 minutes. I'm going to use an aerosol shellac. While I'm waiting for the shellac to dry, I'll get these back spindles ready to be re-glued. Okay, ready to do the glue up. You'll see that I clamped a board across the back of the chair just to give me something to clamp to when I bring that crest rail down. Alright, that looks good. We'll see what happens. So I stained and shellacked this before the glue up. Now I'm going to just go over it with a gray pad, and then I'm going to spray it with a coat of satin aerosol lacquer. When you're using satin or flat lacquers, be sure to shake them up. The instructions say to shake for 1 minute. You should always do that. You don't want the flattening agent to settle in the bottom and give you inconsistent results from this throughout the life of this can. Alright, there you go. A really nice reproduction chair. It fell over and the crest rail broke right along here. It's all back together. Looks pretty good.